SBR Industry News is sponsored by William Hill.
Hi, this is Natalie Rydstrom with this week's SBR Industry News Update, reporting for sportsbookreview.com. A BetClic player has failed a phone quiz. A player wrote to SBR saying he turned a €20 parlay into €1,322. Keen on withdrawing his funds, the player provided ID to BetClic via email. After 2 days, BetClic rang the player and questioned him on the parlay wager he entered. The player claims the question caught him off guard, and he was unable to satisfactorily answer BetClic's question before the call was terminated. BetClic is operating under the belief that the player placed the wager on behalf of another user. It is unclear if BetClic has other evidence in support of this. The player's balance, however, has been confiscated and his account closed. SBR is following up on this sportsbook complaint. Now for some good news. Heritage Sportsbook has made several strides in improving its sportsbook product. Heritage players can now open and close parlays over the internet, wager up to 4.5 points in alternate MLB run lines, and are able to bet via Heritage's new mobile platform. SBR spoke with Heritage management this week, who shared some of their plans for the rapidly approaching football season. Heritage will be rolling out attractive teaser prices, allowing players to buy and sell up to 14.5 points on football sides, as well as launching a poker room in the coming days. Check the SBR Newswire for more details. Now TitanBet is up to its old tricks again. A player wrote to SBR indicating that 2 wagers were cancelled despite being in line with Betfair at the time. TitanBet cancelled more than a dozen player wagers last year for nothing more than the market moving against them. The player missed out on what would have been £143 in winnings as a result of the TitanBet cancellation. TitanBet is currently refusing to comment to SBR on the case, citing privacy policy. In addition to this complaint, a player wrote to SBR stating that his account has been frozen with a $2,170 balance. The player is a lifetime loser with TitanBet, having lost more than $4,000. After going on a good run and requesting 2 payouts, TitanBet froze his account and confiscated the balance. TitanBet is claiming its terms and conditions have been breached. It has failed to offer to the player or to SBR an explanation of what the violation is. TitanBet's rating has been lowered to C-. Now, SBR's lead dispute analyst, Justin Seven, has been dealing with this dispute personally. So to expand on this case, I'd like to welcome him to the show. Justin.
Good afternoon, Natalie.
Do you care to expand more on this case for us, please?
I've handled the earlier stale line cases, and I'm also currently looking at the present one you talked about, where the player had 143 GBP in winnings voided. And it's a recurring problem a lot of sports books face, in that what happens if a linesman is not paying attention and the market moves. Now with TitanBet, the problem appears to be a bit worse, because they had many of these problems back around November, December of last year. We probably had 15 or 20 complaints where players would put in a bet when the with a stale line, the wager would win and TitanBet would void it. And that appears to be what happened here. A player bet on a soccer match. Would both teams score? No, at odds of 1.9. And other Betfair, I think at the time he bet it had 1.8, but may have been higher earlier. BetSun had 1.85. So it wasn't an obvious error. It was just probably a line that had moved, and TitanBet hadn't adjusted their line.
And how does this happen, Justin? How does stale lines appear?
Well, normally a linesman is watching the bets as they come in and watching the position. So you have 2 warnings that your line may be getting out of sync with the market. You can look at everyone else's prices and see that, if I'm offering 1.9 and everyone else is at 1.8 or 1.75, that I'm out of market. And you can also look and see how much money exposure do you have on each side. Normally you want all of your positions to be relatively flat, so you win or lose a small amount or win both ways. But if you get a lopsided position, for example, maybe they had a win 10,000 or lose 11,000, which might be large for this market, that's another sign that you need to move your price. When neither of these happen, when these events happen and you don't adjust your price, it's usually because no one is paying attention to that market.
And don't they have somebody sort of designated to this job who should really be on top of this? Like this almost seems sort of rather bizarre that this is even allowed to happen.
If the sportsbook is competently run, then yes, all the markets someone is paying attention to it. But because it didn't just happen here, but it happened numerous times in the past, I have to wonder if TitanBet is understaffed and doesn't have enough linesmen to look at all the markets they're dealing.
And have you got anything else, Justin? Any other cases you've been working on?
We have a bonus abuse case against Sportingbet. In this case, Sportingbet has a promotion where if you lose your first wager, they give you a free play for the amount you lost and the amount equal to what you lost, limited to 50. So usually a player will deposit, 50 pounds or 50 euros. They make their first bet, and if they lose, they expect to get a free bet. In this case, Sportingbet said, we're just not going to give you the bonus, and they cited their rules. So if you look at their rules, they have 18 rules on point here. So they have a ton of rules, fine print, terms and conditions. But the one that really sinks it is Rule 15. The second sentence says, it also reserves the right to not allow certain account holders to take part in this promotion. So basically, anytime Sportingbet wants, they can say, our rules say we can just choose not to honor this free bet. And they've actually done that several times. This isn't the first complaint we've had where they've arbitrarily refused a player free bet, but given no explanation.
They've got this cited in their rules, but how do they get away with this?
Well, it's clearly not fair. A rule that is this harsh, it basically gives them all the leverage in a contract. Basically, they can say, we have the option to allow this contract to exist or not exist. Now, when you have such a huge disparity in the power between the parties, where one party can enforce a contract or one party can say there is no contract, like Sportingbet can here, that term makes the contract what's called illusory. That is, it's not really a contract where both parties are giving up something, because Sportingbet doesn't have to give up anything. They can just say, oh, we aren't going to honor this. And normally when you have that, any English or U.S. court would strike that term. They would say, this clause allowing you to get out of it, simply we're going to remove that from the contract and enforce the rest of this. So if this were litigated in a court, this clause would get struck and the player would be entitled to his free bet. Now, the more interesting question is, how will IBAS enforce this? If they have a lawyer on staff who understands either English or U.S. law, they'll say this is an illusory contract. You can't use this law to gouge the player, honor the contract. But what I'm worried about is IBS does not have a lawyer on staff based on some of their decisions in the past, where they basically ignored English contract law when they're enforcing these.
It almost seems as well that a player is not only making a bet, say, on their chosen sport, but also actually with Sportingbet itself on whether they will actually get paid and whether Sportingbet decides to cite this rule at any given chance.
Yeah, it says a lot about the regulation of the industry when a book that's publicly traded and regulated by a large gaming jurisdiction like the UK, a player, his money is at risk on, I'm going to call them spurious rules that are unenforceable. Whereas if you're at a book who is concerned about his reputation, your money and player are much safer.
Right. Okay. Well, that's all we've got time for, Justin. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
And thank you to you for tuning in. I've been your host, Natalie Rydstrom, reporting for sportsbookreview.com. Stay tuned and up to date with the sports betting world by checking out our SBR News playlist, clicking on the videos on the screen, and make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel to get the news as and when they happen.